Hello everyone. As you can see, I've created a slightly more complex but still simple version of the basic Pillager column I made last month. I've added Vindicators to the column, made it able to climb up and down 1 block increments, gave the Pillagers and Vindicators custom equipment, and even made the Vindicators automatically aggro so their equipment is visible. All of these features work independently of each other, so I'll go over them one by one so you can choose which ones you want to use. First, let's start with adding the Vindicators. Unfortunately, if you want to create a Pillager army column with more than one mob type, we can't rely on one command block with a tick delay to summon them in. Go ahead and turn off the basic version summon command. We'll still use the teleport and kill command from last time. Then you're going to want to go ahead and create a new scoreboard objective using the following command, where March is the name of the scoreboard I am creating. Feel free to use a different name, and just know to use that name whenever I use March in the following commands. Next, go ahead and use this command to make your scoreboard objective display on the right hand side of the screen so you can see what you're doing. Finally, add a player/name to that scoreboard with a different name. In this case, I'll just use the name Pillager. Now we can move on from that to actually writing the commands into the command blocks. First, you need to make a repeating command block that randomly sets the score from 1 to 2. This will act as a randomizer, determining whether Pillagers or Vindicators will spawn. Make sure you give it a tick delay of 50. I'll make it so that on a 1, Vindicators spawn, and on a 2, Pillagers will spawn. Then, make 2 chains of 3 command blocks, each starting with a repeating command block followed by 2 conditional chain command blocks. Make sure they all have the same orientation, with the arrows on the outside pointing the same direction, otherwise it won't work. I'll go over this one chain of command blocks at a time, starting with the first repeating command block. Start by using this command to test if the score on your scoreboard is equal to 1. Remember that in this command, March is the name of the scoreboard I created, and Pillager is the name of the player holding the score. I left this command block as redstone activated so I can turn it on and off with a lever. The next command block in the chain, which should be a conditional chain command block, will summon in Vindicators if the score is 1. Normal is the name I summon my Pillagers and Vindicators with, so I can refer to them in the commands I write. So again, if you gave your Pillagers and Vindicators a different name, be sure to write whatever that is in instead. The last command block in the chain should also be set to conditional, and set the score of the scoreboard back to 0 so only one group of Pillagers is spawned in. If you go ahead and test it by turning on the first command block chain, and the score randomizer now, you'll see that the Vindicators spawn when the score is set to 1, but nothing will spawn when the score is set to 2 because we haven't set up the other half yet. For the second chain of command blocks, the commands are very similar. In the first command block, just check for a score of 2 instead of 1. Then, the second command should spawn in Pillagers instead of Vindicators, but otherwise the command should be the same. The third command block should use the exact same command as in the first chain. Now, go ahead and test this by going back to the first command block you placed and turning it on. Make sure it spawns both Pillagers and Vindicators. If it only spawns a group or so before stopping entirely, it's likely that you forgot to set some of your command blocks to be conditional. Next, we'll move on to making the Pillagers and Vindicators able to climb up blocks. You should need fewer command blocks for this than the first feature I covered. As you can see, with the current commands we have, the Pillagers and Vindicators will simply walk through any blocks in their way. Basically, we'll make it so that if a Pillager walks into a block, it will teleport a block upwards, and if it walks off of a block and detects air at its feet, it will teleport downwards back onto the ground. The exact contents of the commands you will write will depend on what kind of blocks your Pillagers and Vindicators will be walking on. Since my entire road is made of path blocks, that's what I'll write into this first command. If your Pillagers will be walking on multiple block types, you will need to make a command block for each block type. Every Pillager and Vindicator named normal will test for a path block 0.1 blocks above its current position, and if it finds one, it will teleport upwards by a block. However, we still need to make it so the Pillagers climb back down. The second command is very similar, except we're testing for air at the Pillager's feet instead. You can test this by putting some 1-block increment slopes on the path in front of your pillagers. As you can see, the commands are working. The third feature I'll be going over is custom equipment. We're going to be using the Replaceitem command. I'll demonstrate how the command works by giving this pillager an iron sword. As you can see, now the pillager has an iron sword, but due to the command's limitations, it doesn't actually change the behavior of mobs. This pillager can still shoot at me even though it has a sword. Let's say I wanted to give my pillagers bows instead of crossbows. In this command, first we select the pillagers as the target, pick the slot we want, which is the main weapon slot, and pick the item we want to give them. This has to be in a repeating command block so all new pillagers that spawn in get bows. We'll run essentially the same command for Vindicators, to give them iron swords in their main weapon slot, and shields in their offhands. Unfortunately, since Vindicators usually fold their arms together, they don't actually show the item they are holding until they get aggroed. In order to aggro them, I can use the event command to activate that event for all of them like so. However, even with their swords and shields showing, they still look kinda stiff holding them. Lastly, to get them to raise their swords as if they were chasing someone, I can use this Playanimation command to play that animation from the last feature. There are many other Playanimation commands out there. I'll leave a link to the wiki page with all the animations on it in the description. And that's that. Your pillager army looks a bit more impressive, and hopefully you learn a couple of new types of commands. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.